Hey everyone, I'm here today with Jordan, the boiled jellyfish, and we're going to be tier ranking all 10 Shadows of the Apt books by Adrian Tchaikovsky. But before we
Yeah.
get into that, let's get a quick summary of what the series was even about. Jordan?
Yeah. So Shadows of the Apt, as Patrick said, is it's a 10-book series by Adrian Tchaikovsky. The whole premise of it basically is we have like these kindin. They're like insectoids. So there's like a wasp kingdom, which is our main antagonist. The wasp empire is devouring city after city, and it's expanding its empire all across part of the world that we call the lowlands. They are already consumed another part of the world called the Commonweal at this point. And it all boils down to uh, one beetle named Stemwold Maker, who's a spy master that knows that the Wasp Empire is doing these things. And he's trying to teach people about what's going on with the lowlands that the Wasp Empire has taken over. No one's really believing it until it happens to them. And that's basically where the part of the story takes off. There's also lots of other stuff that comes into effect into the series. There's all kinds of different things, like with each Kindin, Hell has their own different abilities. Like I said, like wasps tend to like fly. They have a stinger that they can shoot their enemies with. There's spiders that are conniving, they're cunning, and they could also camouflage and change into different people. There's beetles, they're durable. They some of them can fly, but they're also insanely intelligent and can create things. And that's where a big theme of the whole story is. It's a military fantasy that focuses on militaristic strategies and technologies to up against each other, kind of similar to like World War II. And that's these people that create these technology, they're called the apt, where they could use and understand technology. But there's also another aspect of the whole world where we have the inapt, which just can't comprehend technology. They can't comprehend looking at a bow and looking at a trigger and pulling it, and said trigger would shoot an arrow. They don't understand that stuff, but they understand ancestral rights. They understand the magic within the lowlands and the Commonweal. And that's basically just a very, very broad idea of Shadows of the App. So hopefully that works out. I don't know if I missed anything, Patrick.
Yeah, no, that was pretty good. Yeah. The Wasp, when they take over the Commonweal, Lowlands, I remember thinking that, or they were thinking, Commonweal, whole bunch of uncivilized people. The Wasp just united them, created an empire. They're becoming civilized like us. So no
Yeah,
one else
yeah.
besides Sten really saw them doing that and thought of it as a bad thing. It was just, oh, they're catching up to us technology wise and being
Yeah.
civilized people on
Yes,
their
because
own.
I think if I recall, yeah, they were like considered more like nomadic people up in the
Yes.
Commonweal. Yeah.
Yep. So a lot of people from Collegium, which is the primary city this takes place in, want to invite the wasps in and show them what true civilization really is. And
Yeah.
Sten's
Think
trying
of
to
it like
warn
a
them.
I like to think of Collegium as like a university metropolis. It's all about technology and advancement and innovation.
Yep. So yeah, you got the battle of the Wasp versus the Lowlands, and the Lowlands aren't exactly trusting of each other either because they all were different cities, different kindred, and they kind of stayed to themselves. They respectfully kept a distance from the other kindreds and the other cities. No one was going to pick a fight with anyone, but they also weren't going to be there to save anyone either. And
Yeah.
then you have the apt versus inapt, and yeah, the two sides just can't understand the other side at all.
No,
It,
it just
it
feels like the ones that are apt, they just don't. they just don't believe in magic. Right?
You can do it right in front of their face, and they'll rationalize it away, like, "Oh, I was hallucinating." And
Yeah.
they'll come up with the most ridiculous explanations to justify it not being magic, and then the inapt can't even turn a doorknob.
No,
That
exactly.
they need a door they can just run into and it opens. That you
Yeah.
put a handle on there, you'll keep all the inapt out or in.
Yep. Instructions are unclear on this knob that you call it.
Yep. So, anyways, with that said, let's get into the tier list and trying to make the categories a little bit more fun. We're going to start with Beetles at the top. This is the S tier because Beetles are your main protagonists. They're the ones that are fighting against the Wasps and want to maintain freedom and liberty, and they're the ones standing up to tyranny the whole time.
Yeah.
Below them is you have the ants. They mostly stood up to tyranny as well, but the ants have what's called an ancestor art that is a mind link, meaning every ant in a tribe can shares a mind with all the other ants in that tribe.
It also makes them very, very good at militaristic strategy.
Yes, because they know everything that any one of them is seeing, but they can't trust people outside that. So they aren't going all in on fighting against tyranny because they don't believe that everyone else isn't going to stab them in the back. And then you have spiders. They're the manipulators. They're schemers, plotting everything. They jump sides a bunch, and even when they're on your side, you don't know if they're on your side or if they're going to stab you in the back because they have a reputation for that. You just never know where the spiders stand. Wasps are the bad guys in this book, so they're clearly one of the bottom tiers. And then mosquitoes, just everyone hates mosquitoes.
Yeah.
They're not very prevalent in the series, but they do play an important role. And even the characters don't like the mosquitoes. Everyone thinks mosquitoes are pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
So those are your tiers.
Yep.
So with that said, let's get started with book one, Empire in Black and Gold. And I felt this series started off on a real high note, had some of the best world building I had ever seen, completely unique with the different Kindin, and then the battles were fantastic. Characters were great. So I'm going to put this up at the top to start off.
I completely agree. A fantastic introduction to the world building and the characters. The pacing is really, really well done, and it sucked me in. Honestly, it's my favorite of the whole series. Definitely deserves top Beetle tier.
Yep, agreed. It's my favorite of the series as well. Now, book two, you have Dragonfly Falling. Now, this I felt was a step down from Empire in Black and Gold. You focus more on a subset of characters and kind of explore their own character arc, and a group of the main characters from the first book kind of take a backseat for most of this one. So it really depends how you feel about the characters that does focus on how much you're going to like this book. So I thought it was good, but it nowhere near the top tier.
I kind of probably disagree. I think it should be up in Beetle, right behind Empire Black and Gold. I found majority of the book was actually better than Empire in Black and Gold, minus one subplot, one point of view. because they just kept going on with the pacing. It kept going. It just picked up right from where Empire and Black and Gold left off. It has a really cool siege that shows the innovation of technology and how that can change the tactics of warfare, and it has a really good introduction to like how the apt works and how it works for the communities in the lowlands and all that. This one was my second favorite of the series.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll keep it here for now until we see where everything else lands.
Sounds good.
All right. Book 3, Blood of the Mantis. Yeah. I'm just going to go straight to mosquitoes. So Blood of the Mantis, it really digs into the inapt world at this point. You kind of lose almost everything that was happening in the first 2 books. Those plot lines just come to an end, and then the inapt plot line takes over. It was confusing. It felt like a lot of words for very little to actually happen.
So I agree with it being down in the bottom, down with Mosquito. It's the shortest of the series, and thankfully that it was, because it was the weakest. The main problem with it, I found, is it had an attempt at at more world building, and it just kind of left more questions than answers. It just left a lot more loose strings for the series. And like Adrian Tchaikovsky, like his world building is his strongest trait as an author, but sometimes he does it too much and excessive. He's too excessive with it that everything else suffers. And that's definitely what happens with Blood of the Mantis.
Yeah. All right. Book 4, Salute the Dark. So I'll move this back up to the Ants, where this was another good one. It kind of got back to what was working with the first 2 books, and it concludes the first arc of the series, which is, you could say this is the battle begins, the war begins, are these first 4 books. Had a very exciting end, definitely some emotional character moments in this one, and overall just kind of like a return to form for me.
Oh, 100% guarantee. It's definitely a return back to form. The pacing was really cool. You finally get a better understanding of like the inapt magical part mixed in with the apt technology part in this book. And yeah, definitely, it's the end of the first arc of three arcs that I call. And it's a fantastic stopping point for those who are interested in considering like continuing the series or not, because if you finish here, you could probably just say that you're done with the series if you feel content with it, or not content. You could stop from book 4.
Yeah, you could definitely conclude there with the thought. But I feel like if you did that, you would know this is only.
You know that there's more to come after, but if you're not content with the series by book 4, that's a good spot to just stop.
Yes, yeah, that very true.
Yeah.
So the next arc is kind of 3 books long. You can call those almost the side quest arc, or the expanding world arc, where again you had this big cast of characters in the first 4 books. Now the characters remaining, you're gonna kind of zoom in on 1 or 2 of them with each book and follow what they're doing after the events from book 4. So the first one, I'm kind of torn between either top of spiders or bottom of ants.
Right now, I'd probably say they're like top of spiders for time being.
Let's go there.
Yeah. we can still maneuver.
This does a lot of world building, bringing in a lot. There's a lot from this book that is going to be referenced throughout the rest of the series. That after the book 4, you kind of like almost like a Cold War time period, where everyone knows that the status quo isn't going to last and they're preparing. And this book has ramifications that go throughout the rest of the series for both sides. You can even say all 4 sides. For the Beetle side, the Wasp sides, for the apt side, and for the inapt side. There's a lot of consequences from this book.
Yeah. I'd say like top of Spiders tier for now. It's definitely the beginning of the side quest arc. This book definitely lays down the foundation for the rest of the books, especially like the last 3, in terms of what's going to happen. It just lays down the groundwork for that. And it's also the beginning of character growth for 2 of our main characters, and which actually end up being the 2 best characters for character growth. So, in my opinion, so it's definitely a good one there. So I would definitely place it down on top of Spiders tier.
Spiders. Okay.
So I can't see them. It's like on my phone screen. Yeah. Next one.
6, the Sea Watch. I'll put this in Wasps. It's a little bit better than Blood of the Mantis. But the world building just basically you had 5 books of world building. And then you have the Sea Watch, which has just as much world building in it as the other 5 combined. So the plot feels like nothing more than a weird side quest. The characters don't really do much. There's, I guess, one somewhat interesting character relationship that's going on. But even that just seemed unnecessary. So the whole book to me felt unnecessary, and I wouldn't complain at all if you said you think it belongs in Mosquitoes.
Yeah, so you know what? We'll leave it in Wasp for now. It probably mostly deserves to be a Mosquito, but we'll probably do a bit more shuffling later. But Sea Watch, it's one of the weakest of the series. Like I said earlier, Adrian Tchaikovsky, his strongest trait is in world building. However, this book suffers greatly in terms of plot and character growth. This book had immense potential, but it served the entire series plot very poorly.
Right.
Definitely one of the top 2 weakest in the series. This and Blood of the Mantis, in my opinion.
Yeah. I do think that if you were rereading this series, that the first 5 books probably had quite a bit of foreshadowing for book 6.
Oh, they foreshadowed it in book 2.
Right.
I knew that one right off the bat.
Yep. But reading it for the first time, a lot of it feels like it's out of nowhere and completely unrelated to everything else. So maybe on a reread, it wouldn't seem as much of a side quest. You'd be waiting for it to happen instead of it being on the side. But for the first read, there's so many details in this book that type of foreshadowing, you're almost certain to miss most of it, if not all of it.
Yeah. Oh, this series is definitely one that
reread worthy.
It's reread worthy. You definitely benefit more from that. Yeah. All right.
Book 7. You got Heirs of the Blade. This goes somewhere between the Scarab Path and the Sea Watch. I'll put it bottom of Spiders for now. Again, you follow one character as she tries to get over the trauma she experienced from the first arc of the story, and you follow another character who's basically just trying to save the first character, that realizing she is emotionally damaged and traumatized and needs a friend, yet this person doesn't want any friends. They don't want anyone close to them, and they're trying to run away from that and discover who they are. And while doing that, they're actually discovering more of who they're not. They fall into, let's just say, a bad group and have their mind messed with a bit.
Yeah. So Heirs of the Blade, I mean, it's the last of the side quest arcs, but it does start having more groundwork laid out, more information provided for what's coming to the end of the series. There's one specific character that drops this quote out of nowhere, and that was what got me for this book. I was like, oh my God, now I want to know what's happening for the series because of this one quote. Right. So yeah, it definitely deserves to be right behind Scarab Path. Stronger than Sea Watch, but not as strong as Scarab Path. Definitely agree with you there.
All right. And then we kind of start the last arc, which is the War Returns, or I don't know, what did you have a name for the last 3 books?
I just called on my notes here, I just put it in as the Final Push arc.
Final Push.
Yeah.
So starting with the Air War, I'm kind of torn. Ants, spiders. It's right around the Scarab Path for me. You kind of bring a lot of people back together at this point. The war starts back up. It's okay. This is what we've been building to for 3 books. There's some cool technological advances you see, and really get a demonstration of the power of what war does to societies when they're, as far as technologically advancing, and just how quickly things move and change and develop that way. My big problem with this is there's a couple things that he did that just felt like plot conveniences, or almost magicking your way out of a situation where there's very little mention of this or no mention of it, and then that ends up being the key to saving the world or winning the battle or something like that.
That was foreshadowed in the Scarab Path.
Some of it was, not all of it.
Yeah,
there was a few things
they brought up something, and I was like, ooh. But yeah, the Air War for me actually was a big surprise. I wasn't expecting to enjoy this one as much as I thought. I would actually put it above Salute the Dark. Okay. Mostly because it focuses mostly on the apt side of the world and adds a new point of view, which shows a frontline soldier's point of view during this.
Right.
And that's what was the best part, to be honest. And it had a really strong build up to an event, and it didn't happen to what you expected, like the outcome would be. And that's what I really enjoyed about it. Yeah, the Air War actually surprised me. I knew I was going to like it more than Heirs of the Blade when I was reading it, like when I was about to start it. but I didn't expect it to like it more than Salute the Dark.
Yeah. And you're actually right. One of the things I was thinking of that I didn't like is in the next book, which it was the one thing I didn't like about the next book. Everything else I really enjoyed with this one. It's up there with Empire in Black and Gold as far as my favorite. Warmaster's Gate. The title kind of gives a bit away as far as what this one's going to be about. Clearly, there's going to be a lot of fighting and holding a gate and holding the wall, trying to keep the enemy out. And fantastic action. But it did have that one thing where a new Kindon shows up that you've never really heard of, and that's what ends up changing the tide of the war. And I didn't like how that played out.
Warmaster's Gate for me, I feel like I'm like iffy on it being like above Dragonfly Falling or behind it, but it's the most anticipated part of the series. It has finally arrived in Warmaster's Gate, and so much has happened in this book, and there's so many twists and turns. But what I really love is it proves the theories that I was thinking of, and it disproves other theories that I was thinking of. And that's what I love about reading a series sometimes. Is like I love creating all these series, and I like being disproved, but I also love being proven correct. Like I just love having both happen. Because that's what makes series good. Because like you kind of want like that little boost in what was it, dopamine? I don't know. In getting it right, but also I like the twist to throw me off, right? So, Warmaster's Gate definitely gave that to me. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it above Dragonfly Falling for now.
Yeah.
So
this is really, in a lot of ways, the climax of the war that you've been spending time in for the first 9 books.
Yeah.
Which brings me to book 10. You kind of step away from that war, and the world building changes. The world changes. Like everything you thought you knew about the world, well, a wrench gets thrown into that. And now it's, you guys were talking about a war between countries. Now the whole world is at stake. Like we might all be killed, and everything that we are good at, technology and magic, so the apt and the inapt, we both become useless when we're fighting this enemy. So how are we going to deal with that? So it's interesting seeing the characters, like some of them have to work together that wouldn't have worked together before. Some should work together but can't let go. Others are just determining what lines are they willing to not cross, but who do they really want to be? Like who, having a self-realization moment of, okay, is this the life I want, or is this more important? And then it throws in thriller and horror because, again, no one can stand up to this enemy. So it definitely a completely different feel from the rest of the book. So I honestly don't know where to put it up here.
yeah,
Just so different from the rest.
that's where I'm struggling. I'm like, should I put it behind Salute the Dark or before it, or should I put it before Air War and Salute the Dark? I'm probably going to say put it between Salute the Dark and Air War. For me personally, mostly it's just like this is where Adrian Tchaikovsky decides to flex his writing muscles and decide to shake up the genre a bit from military fantasy to have a bit more of a thriller horror approach to it. And it's definitely one that also makes you think a lot more with what's going on. It can be confusing, but that's the whole nature of the beast in Seal of the Worm. And after everything's been concluded, like the ending of this book series is, you know what? It's brutal, but it's also satisfying.
Yes.
And I applaud Adrian for wrapping this up. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna leave it between Air War and Salute the Dark. I believe I gave it a 4.25 out of 5 when I gave a review on it. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Seal of the Worm.
Yeah. So this is our ranking. Do you want to think we should move anything, or I feel like this is a pretty good distribution?
Yeah. Personally, I would probably have Dragonfly Falling up on
And Beatles.
Beetle tier, and then the rest, I'll be fine with the rest.
Right. Yeah. For me, I think these are the only two I gave 5 stars.
Yeah.
So this was probably 4.5 stars, and then these were 4 stars, 4 to 4.5. This would have been a low 4. These would have been 2 to 3 stars.
Yeah.
I think the Sea Watch. The reason why I'm always tempted to put the Sea Watch down in Mosquitoes is just because it was long too. It's like,
yeah.
Blood of the Mantis was at least a relatively.
It's one of the longer books. I think it's it's almost 700 pages.
Yeah, so I think it's twice as long as Blood of the Mantis.
Yes. Yes, it is. Because Blood of the Mantis is only like a couple hundred. It's like 350, I think, if I recall. Because I was like, oh my god, thank God that's done.
Yes.
No, it's in the 400s.
Kind of wants me to move Blood of the Mantis above Sea Watch because it's like
429 pages for Blood of the Mantis. So it was longer, but it is still the shortest of the entire series. I think the average of the whole series is like 650 pages per book, if I recall.
Yes.
It is a big book series. I mean, like, just show the stack. Because what did we buddy read this. Patrick read the first 4 like a year before I started the first 4, I think, and then we met up on book 5, and then we read every book a month for 6 months.
I think overall this took me a year and a half to get through, or almost 2 years to get through the whole series.
So this is the stack. Yeah. So it's a bit big. I think I did the math up like a year ago, and it was like 6,200 pages for all 10 books. So, yeah. She's thick. It's a thick series, for sure. So, yeah. That is our tier ranking. Believe it or not, this is our second take of this. Oops.
Couldn't stay on topic last time.
Oh my god. And we're 34 minutes in for this one. Last one was like an hour and a half.
Yep.
Okay.
We did much better this time.
Much better. Well, thank you to everyone who stayed with us for 34 minutes.
Yep. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the series and this tier ranking, whether or not you agree with it. Is this a series you've read? Because my guess is if you haven't read it, you will find something you like in this series. You'll also find something you don't like in this series because it covers a whole lot of ground. So
yeah,
might be worth checking out.
Yes, and if you have read the series, I would love to know your tier ranking list. And one thing I got to say about Shadows of the Apt is when I was done, I was just like, I am done with the series for like 10 years. And then like now I'm like almost a year after finishing it. I'm like, I'm like thinking, I'm like, man, a reread would be like super cool right now.
Yes.
Because it's just so vivid, like it's so dense with world building. It's just fun to get back into. It's Adrian Tchaikovsky's world building is, in my opinion, better than Sanderson with Shadows of the Apt.
Yeah, I'd agree. Just needs to be reined in a little bit.
Yeah. I just think he needs to work on his plots more. Because his world building sometimes takes a little too much of the front seat.
Right.
But yeah.
I do feel the more you read Tchaikovsky, the better you get at reading Tchaikovsky.
Yeah.
Because his books are ones that almost every time I'm finishing the book saying, I really enjoyed this. I didn't love it. I need a break from Tchaikovsky, but I want to read more.
Yeah, that's something about him. Like he's just like this weird addiction.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, anyways, that's our ranking. Again, leave us a comment. Let us know what you thought of the series and this ranking. And until next time, bye.
Stay hydrated.